I need to build the bridge. Otherwise, we get dictated by other people's needs and wants. And I want you to be aware of your own. You're the one who has to live with you.
I found it. Care for yourself.
Absolutely. Care for yourself.
Care for others.
And in little tiny ways. Magic in the moment. Magic in the moment. If it's a beautiful day, walk outside for 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes out of your lunch break and go walk around the parking lot if you have nothing else. And just breathe in some nice air. If you're working in a hospital, go stand and look at the happy babies for a couple of minutes. I always tell people who work in the ER, spend 5 minutes of your shift every day up at the newborn nursery giggling at the babies. I said, what should we do that for? I said, oh, try it and see what happens. I said, you know, it reminded me that sometimes there is success. I said, yeah. Especially those of you who work with people who are dying, who are aging, who are becoming more and more and more debilitated. Sometimes we get caught in seeing ourselves in the future, and all we could see is no matter what I do, I can't stop the process. Did you expect to? What did you expect? What did you want? We care for ourselves by thinking this through. If you would think this one thing through with me, it'll save us a lot. I want you to think of energy as pennies. Everything we do, we spend energy. In the 90s and in the 70s, the hippies talked about the vibes. And in the 90s, we talk about energy fields, and then people get all of this stuff. But just think about them as pennies. And some of us start out with a lot of pennies in our pocket, and some of us don't have very many pennies in our pocket, and some have 1 and 2. And it isn't fair how many pennies you start out with. Life never was fair, so give up worrying about that anymore. No energy needs to be expended on that one. The trick at the end of the day is to have a penny in your pocket, to either put away for a rainy day, to pay back the debt that some of us have incurred because we have been going to that well again and again and again. And you can draw on a well until you are literally collapsing the sides. What happens to a sponge if it's left to dry on the counter for a year? It stiffens up, and then what happens to it if you touch it? It literally disintegrates. The cellular walls collapse. Our cellular walls collapse, and we become ill, discouraged, sick, and die. We're going to die anyway, but is this worth dying for? So your thought process is, how can you get a penny or give someone else a penny? Whatever you do today, did it put a penny in your pot? Did someone put it in? A smile puts a penny in somebody's pot. Saying thank you, the most powerful words we will ever utter to anyone else. I used to think those words were I love you, until a couple of months ago I said I love you to a little kid, and he said, what do you want? And I was surprised, just like you. And I said, what? And then I realized in his life those words had a price tag, and that people use those as manipulation. And if they wanted something, they'd say, I love you. And he figured that one out. So I switched, and I said, I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing to you. I just wanted to say thank you. He went, he didn't know what to do with it, because no one had ever said thank you to him. And he got a penny in his pot that day, and I got one too. You'd be amazed at those tiny little words. Do anything, whether it's taking 5 minutes out for yourself to do some deep breathing, whether it's eating 1 cookie, you don't have to eat the whole box, whether it's exercise, whether it's listening to quiet music, whether it's hugging somebody, whether it's just saying, you know what, at the end of every day, I'm going to find a blessing. And sometimes the only blessing I've ever found is this day's over and I don't have to do it again. And you know what? Just changing my own thought process helped enough. Helped enough. God put me here to accomplish a certain number of things. And sometimes I'm so far behind I'll never die. You know you're leaking if that becomes your thought process. You know you're leaking. He did put us here to accomplish a certain number of things, but he didn't say what time you had to do it in and what's on your list. Keep a to-do list, and then I want you to make another kind of list. I learned this from a very elderly gentleman in a nursing home years and years ago. A colleague was doing a research project. She was interviewing people who were 98 years old and above on tips on how to get to be 98 years old and above. And she'd ask a couple of us to go around the country with her and to go to different nursing homes in different counties and states. And I was interviewing several people, and this gentleman was sitting in his wheelchair, and he said, Girlie, Girlie, come over here. And I didn't know my name was Girlie until I realized he was talking to me. I said, yes, sir. He said, come here. What are you talking to those old people for? I said, well, I'm asking them some questions about what it's like to be old, and did they well, I'm old. I said, well, how old are you? I'm 98. I said, well, you qualify, yeah. I said, so I'm asking him, do you have any tips on how to get to be old? And he had a few, and he said, but the best one, do you make lists? I said, well, yes, sir, I do. And he said, thought so. Look like a list-making person. Okay, I don't know what a list-making person looks like, but if you want to look at one, I'm one. I make lists. He said, yeah, me too. I make a list every day of my life. Always have, always will. I can't see much anymore, so those two girlies over there, and he's pointing to two of the attendants at the nursing home, I make them come to my bed every night. You would ask them, and they're nodding their heads, and they sit on my bed, and I tell them, and they write my list. I said, well, what's on your list? He said, it's different than yours. I said, well, apparently it is. I'm not 98. What's on your list? He said, at the end of every day, I make them write down, I list everything I did today, and I cross it off. Now, that's a good list. You and I sit on the edge of the bed at night and make a list of everything we didn't do. And you spend all night thinking about it. He makes a list of everything he did and crosses it off and goes to bed with a free heart. Everything on that other list, it'll still be there in the morning. You got to find some way to free up a little bit of heart space. Do anything you can. Anything you can. Once we're aware of it, once we're aware of our own needs, whether we're a caregiver or caretaker, acknowledge it, and then do something about it. Find some way to heal your own heart. That's all we have to do. A survival plan, whatever it is. But I want you to start today. One single step. Today, what are you going to do for yourself? Whether it takes 5 minutes or 4 hours. Nobody has 4 hours, but you got 5 minutes. If you don't have 5 minutes a day, then we're short on life. It only takes, I'm not talking going on vacation. I'm not talking about going into a movie for 3 hours. That's nice. I'm not talking about laying in a bathtub or swinging in a hammock. 5 minutes. Come on, you're worth 5. If you could do 5, I'll ask you for 10 later. But try for 5. Try for 5. Do you worry? I found this quote a couple of months ago. It's out of Abbey Press. I love it. Worry does not empty tomorrow of its troubles. It empties today of its strength. The old adage, figure out what you can do, what you can't do, let go of what you can do, get busy. What you can do about a worry, then do it. If you can't, put it away. All we're doing is robbing ourselves of tomorrow if you spend today worried about it. Just get busy and do what you can do, and let that be enough, and celebrate who you are. Can you make a difference in somebody's life? What do you think? Can you? I see lots of nodding heads. No, you can't. They have to make a difference in their own lives. But you can be the catalyst. You can be the candle in the dark. You can be the match that lights the candle. But no, we can't make a difference in other people's lives. They have to do that themselves. And once I learned that, then I could let them be free to live their lives as they chose fit. And I was just grateful they let me walk with them for a little bit. Because you know, as I do, the gift is to being with each other. Not living for each other, but side by side. That's the gift of being a caregiver and a caretaker. Figure out what you can do what you can, and celebrate that anybody let us in the door at all. Do what you can. Take your 5 minutes sometime today without any guilt. It's only 5 minutes. See what you could do and work towards 10. Thanks for coming today, and take care.